Hello, I'm Michel Gagné, and you are listening to the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast, where wizards reside.
You have a gift. You have a passion for creation. There's something inside you that wants to express itself, and that something has led you to explore the world of visual effects, a place where magic happens, and the only limitation is your imagination. All the greatest artists in the world started somewhere, learning and growing into the people they are today. You, being here, is the first step to building your legacy as an artist. Learn from the best and brightest in the real-time visual effects community. Sharpen your skills and be your best self.
Here is your host, Travis McCallum.
Hello, everybody. I've got Anthony Davis here. He is a technical artist at EA Games, and he's also the owner of Defy Studios in Orlando, Florida. Anthony, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It is early for me. This quarantine is keeping us going. But good.
You're in Orlando, right? So
yes.
Is it pretty warm or pretty cool there? What's the weather like?
Just recently we had a little bit of dip in temperature. I mean, it was getting hot and now it's back down into the 70s. But it's going to go back into the 90s here in like 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get started with asking you, Anthony, how'd you get started in visual effects?
Yeah, so visual effects is kind of a funny route. For people that get into it, it's unique, right? It's not like I want to be a character artist. All of a sudden you're just there. A lot of times you hear people just kind of fall into it because it's a crazy puzzle game in their heads and they just want to keep pushing this strange puzzle. For me, I was at Full Sail and I didn't know what to do because I was doing game art at the time. And I was fine at modeling, I guess. And I was fine at drawing, not really great, but I was fine. And then Nathaniel Bell from Insomniac actually showed me some kind of small shader work in Photoshop, which is not really a shader. It was just kind of visualization with blending of layers a certain way. And from that moment, I was kind of hooked on shaders and how materials work. And Unreal 4 wasn't out. It was UDK at the time. So I kind of just started working with these weird things called materials that no one knew how to do really. And I just kept going from there. And yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. We know that visual effects is a pretty broad spectrum, but when we're looking at real-time visual effects, just kind of what's your definition on that, if you had to give it a couple words?
Yeah, real-time visual effects, it would be graphics, depending on if it's through particles or through material work in Vertex or whatever fragment you're working on here, is bringing life to the screen or emotion to the screen on top of your animated character or environment.
Cool, man. Cool. So you've been working in the visual effects space for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. Looking back on your beginnings, what are some of the things that you wish you had known when starting out in visual effects?
Yes. The wish I had known. Oh, man. Well, when I was first starting, I didn't learn how to Google correctly. It took me a while to fail a bunch to understand the question I was really wanting to ask. So like the XY problem, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that before, but generally I would ask people something when I needed to ask them the right question. So I would say things like, how do I make a fountain? And when I should have asked, how do I make sprites go up and fall down properly? That kind of stuff. With like a drag to gravity or something. And it took me a while to fail at. So I'm glad I've learned that because that skill has helped me across every single platform.
Under What are you most curious or interested in right now?
Oh, man. Well, I'm working as tech art, so programming languages are really getting under my skin here. I'm just learning C++, just to get further into the design, physical, actual writing the code as opposed to just having blueprints. And it's not really helping me that much for visual effects, to be honest. But I'm really interested in that side of it and getting more into the tech. But if I'm very specific onto effects, I'm super interested in hand-drawn effects. Animation and using hand-drawn is so visceral, it seems. And it's like you're literally bringing that emotion in. It's crazy.
What's something that you have failed at, Anthony, and how did you handle it? What maybe as a learning experience?
Yeah. So let's see. The first I'd say the first time I really got into effects as a job, as opposed to a lot of times I'm kind of doing hobby stuff. So my first job portion of it was with an indie title, and I was doing some effects for Frog Dice in a game they were creating. And it was in Unity, and I had not done many things in Unity at the time. So I think something that was difficult for me to understand is it's not the tool that you need to learn the most. It's the art, right? The pencil. So if I had learned more of how to draw better, I would have been a better visual effects artist for that position. And then I realized that that's kind of across the board. So I can't get stuck in my head across just Unreal or just Unity. I have to get better at drawing in general. And that's something I failed at quite a bit.
Thinking about learning how to draw, what's maybe some advice that you have to people who want to learn how to draw?
Yeah, the best advice I've ever gotten, which made me feel better about drawing in general, is it's a funny one-liner. You have 10,000 bad drawings of the same thing, so just go ahead and get them out. You'll find the best one over time.
That's good advice for sure. When you're looking at work of your own, or maybe work from other people, what are some of the things you're looking for visual effects?
Okay. Visual effects first, I try not to look at the art right away. A lot of times critiques are not finalized products. If I'm looking at it if I look at that perspective, if it's just a critique, not a job placement style critique, I'm only looking at the animation principles. So I really look at timing first. If the timing of the effect is on point and I can feel where the emotion is going, then everything can fall into place from there for me, it seems. So I think timing would be the best thing I can say.
Okay. Can you give me an example of maybe a place where you've had to exercise that?
Sure. So you want me to use yours?
Yeah. If you want, wherever.
Yeah. So I don't know if you posted this one right away, but maybe this might be a good spot to toss in your lightning bolt here. So your lightning is looking for power, right? It's looking everything in lightning needs to have a buildup and then a punch, because it's lightning. So it has millions of volts it wants to explode with. And if you don't allow for an anticipation to hit before the actual attack, right, the actual release, then you never get a buildup of that power. You don't know that the power is coming. So it's funny, but I like to make noises. So when you have a zhoo up, bam. So you have that time in between called ma. It's a Japanese thing. Ma, it's null. And if you don't have that pause in there, then it's never as powerful as it could be. So that's something that I see, and I see that a lot, actually. Timing is missing in some pieces.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
What are some trends that you're seeing out in the industry right now?
For visual effects, the trends that I'm seeing are leaning away from hand-drawn heavy, and they're trying to use, you see a lot in VFX Apprentice style, where they'll do some drawings, but they'll do, what is it called? Like, there's a thing that I'm missing.
Concept art?
No, concept art's there, but it's like they'll utilize shaders to get away from the drawing a bunch of them. So VFX Apprentice actually does a good job with those things. Man, why is it called? When it has you have a list of them from 1, 2 through 9. I'm missing the word. Like a tile sheet. Let's just call it that.
A sprite sheet?
Sprite sheet, that works. Flipbook.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So you see a lot of those happening, but if you look like a Diablo, they built a single frame that was what they wanted to kind of look like, and then they put on top of it a pre-multiplied effect that was panned across, and then it would add to that alpha to make it more organic of an alpha versus drawing all of those flips out, right? So I'm seeing more of a blend of art and shader work to make as most optimization as possible. I see that. Problem is, I'm going to contradict myself, because looking at Valorant is brand new and it's in alpha, and there's hand-drawn effects all over the place, and I can see all of the spreadsheets. I don't know now. I'm kind of devil advocating myself.
Right. And, the popular argument against using things like flipbooks, while they have very stylistic approach, is they're very stuck or constrained in what they can do. So I hear that a lot with that.
Yeah, it's strange. I guess it's all depends on the requirements, but if I were to go a little bit further and just say trend, like Chinese effects, I don't want to call them Chinese, but the Chinese visuals, the style where they're pushing contrast and putting black into things, adding like the ink effect you've seen with a lot of the, what is it called? They'll do like a sweep and it has hand drawn looking, but then it has a contrast of black up underneath it. Mm-hmm. So beautiful. But I hadn't seen that until that style got a little bit popular on YouTube. And now people are looking for tutorials and you can't get any that aren't in Chinese. You just gotta hope.
So let's flip gears and talk about your experience in the field specifically. And really, I want to start by asking you what your process for creating a visual effect is, maybe at Defy Studios.
Okay.
And if you could talk a little bit about how it differs from how you do things at EA. Okay.
So I'm not going to plug Defy too much here because we're on a hold until we can actually get funding. And then it's almost like currently I'm just messing around with a blog I'll release one of these years. Actually, maybe pretty soon. But we're not doing anything with Defy quite yet. So, but I do want to talk about this process. So do you want to talk about the process of creating a single effect or about how I want to talk about effects overall in a game creation, like as a design model?
I think both sides would be good. And one of the things people had asked in the forums was understanding like a timeline from start to finish, how long it takes to make a single effect. Or particle system.
Oh, geez, that is wildly. That is something that needs to get across to the community that effects are wildly varied. I mean, some can take. I can put something together maybe in 20 minutes. That's not going to be used in production, but it's an effect and it gives me an emotion. I can understand what's happening. It can help the flow of the scene if a designer needs some help with that versus something that if I'm going to do a hero piece, like let's talk about the world tree burning, right? That is a massive asset in the scene that's burning, and fire is notorious for having overdraw because it needs a lot of frames to kind of show flickering and such, right? So that could probably take months to really work out in the way that you want it to, depending on what the requirements are and the needing for finalization, right, and actual production. So that's almost an impossible question to answer without having a lot of prerequisites known to get timing down.
So at the end of the day, it just depends, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you'll see that a lot in the VFX community. Is you'll see one-liner. It depends. That's it. That's the forum post, right? It depends. And that kind of is uncomfortable, but you have to understand that the real-time VFX world is very puzzly, and it's hard to say what something is without knowing a lot around it. So yes, it depends. So if I were to, that's the answer for that question that you had. If you want to talk about just my pipeline, my workflow for me for an effect is I definitely get a bunch of reference and I will draw up just quick kind of feels to it. So like I said, timing's kind of big for me. So I want to draw some quick little tidbits and then find out where I want a build up, where I want a release, where I want if it's going to hit something. If it's like a spell, then if it has travel time and then it has an actual attack or a hit point, I want to be able to know what it looks like at that hit point. There's a lot of different styles there. And then I'll just block it out with the tiniest of particles. It can just be math dots. It doesn't matter to me much, just as long as I can get the timing down. After that, I add layers. And that's pretty much it. Because think about animation really in general. It's not done really until you ship it, and you have to just ship it. Otherwise, you can just keep tweaking the curve just a little, and it could be a forever game if you're not careful.
Cool, man. I know that you didn't start in visual effects. You actually had time in the military service. First of all,
right.
Thank you for your service, Anthony. That was a big thing. But can you kind of describe what was that transition like, leaving the military and going into visual effects? And how do you feel like being in the military prepared you for where you are now?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'm going to tack on to military. So my workforce experience started, I'm not going to go out in every single one, but standard high school job, flipping burgers at Sonic. And then I also, before I went to the military, I did computer work, just helping people in town fixing their computers because people just didn't get it. So, and I did. So I helped out a buddy. We had like a little computer thing. And I went to the military. After that, I've been a gymnastics coach. I've did some amateur MMA. I've done, I've done a lot. I've done IT work with Oracle, with ServiceNow. I also trained aviation post-military for special forces, as well as other things. I've flown some spy planes, I've like a lot of weird stuff. And then I decided I'm going to go to Full Sail and do game art just because I like games, and that's what I should do. So I've done a lot, and I've been around a lot of weird positions. And I think it's not so much how the military helped me. I think really it's how much I've experienced life. I've been all across the world. There's a lot more places I want to go, but I've seen a lot of good and scary and beautiful and just like dead desert, but there's still beauty in the desert. So it's neat to do all of these things and try to put that into work and understanding. I guess military maybe brought tenacity. I just stick at something sometimes, my mission, even though I might be kind of beating a dead horse sometimes. Yeah. So there's that.
Thinking about being in visual effects, you have said that you moved into technical art.
Yes.
And now, even to a degree, even though it's on hold, you are a producer as well. How's that kind of change been for you, kind of wearing multiple hats and being in different areas within, the gaming pipeline?
Yeah. So I think military did something good for me there too. So I was kind of put into a leadership role pretty early in my career as a military. And by doing so, you have to wear a few different hats as a leader. So I kind of picked that up quick, and my sergeants and my leadership above me had kind of pushed me in that way because they saw I had a way with it. So, and by doing so, I'm able to pick up something pretty quickly and help somebody and see where they're at, which is where coaching came in from gymnastics. Was I could see the flaw, even if I wasn't great at that particular thing. Like you're not going to see me doing a round off double back or something great. It's just not going to happen. But I can spot where you're opening too early, or I can spot when you aren't looking straight ahead, or tucking your feet or your butt. So I can see those on the outside, and that helps me understand I don't have to be perfect at something to lead somebody, I guess. And producing, all that comes down to is noticing other people's attributes and understanding where they need to go in their career. In my opinion, it's so much, I kind of bring things down to customer level, and customer in that case is your employee. And yeah, I don't mind. I could wear as many hats as I can. That would make me happy. But tech art, I fell into that because honestly, it was a position that was available. I would have went for a visual effects position, but it wasn't available in Orlando for me currently. But I could do tech art because I know Python. So I wouldn't say that I'm at the most perfect job just yet, right? I'm getting there, but I also don't know what my perfect job is because obviously I like to do a lot of things.
For sure, man, for sure. There are a lot of people who question the viability of getting a formal education for visual effects.
Okay.
And since you've gone to Full Sail University, how has that helped your VFX career?
Okay. So I will say that education is not given. It must be taken. And I say that in the kindest of ways here. So it doesn't matter where you go for schooling, in my opinion. Full Sail's unique in its way that it's fast, right? It's very, very quick. You don't have to worry about taking your time through schooling, which sometimes that might be better. But in Full Sail's case, they have a lot of people who are in the industry. So Full Sail helped me by meeting people, which if I wouldn't have met Nathaniel, I would have not known what a shader was for some time. So I probably would have ended up doing rigging, which would have just solidified my tech art stuff, which would have been fine because I'm pretty good at that and I enjoy it. But I'm really happy that I got pushed into visual effects because that's something I wake up and I can do, and I enjoy it all the time. I actually forgot your question fully, so I just kind of ramble sometimes.
No worries. I was just asking about how going to a university helped your VFX career.
Yeah. It was primarily meeting Nathaniel helped me out getting in that. And then, as I was saying, education, you have to be the one that takes that education. So your teacher will not ever, no matter where you go, even if it's Ivy League, whatever, they're not going to push the thing you need down your throat. You're going to have to look for it. You can see that mostly in like not undergraduate work. If you see graduate work, it's me doing what I need to do, and I have mentors helping me study that. So that's the way that I think every student should do it from high school on, really.
Since you're in tech art, and you've learned how to code in Python, C#, JavaScript, I think most people are very intimidated by programming. Do you feel like it's something that VFX artists need to learn?
So that's a really good question, actually. So I am not one to think that somebody should not try, because effects, and basically if you're looking at any kind of job in the industry, in any industry now, you almost have to have multifaceted systems underneath your belt. You can't, it's very, very hard to get a job if, let's just say, you're the best 2D artist and you're great at making flipbooks, but you're not understanding the tech side of things. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for you to get a visual effects job as just an artist. So if you don't spend any time in Unreal or Unity or any tech spot, then you're going to have a hard time understanding how that works. And programming, I think, gives you a even more strong fundamental understanding of how tech works, how software works, understanding what limitations are that you can get better. But I think that maybe there's a fall off to it. So maybe
to put things in context, where would a visual effects artist like apply coding within their effects? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Let's see. So the only real place that you're going to see a lot of effects artists put their time in programming, it would be in the shader language. That would be the strongest use of programming. So that would be HLSL or GLSL, depending on where you're at.
Gotcha. All right, Anthony. Are you ready for the lightning round questions?
Oh, yeah.
Quick and easy, just like visual effects.
Sure. Yeah. Quick and easy. I'll try to keep my answers down to half an hour each.
What is a perfect one-day getaway in Orlando, Florida and the surrounding area?
Yes. I've had a lot of time to think about this recently. So in Orlando, that's not really an easy answer because I love a lot of the spots in Orlando. Mostly I'm a foodie. I go to a bunch of different food places out here. I love it. So, but if I were to say one day getaway, I would want to go to Siesta Key. That's out near Tampa. It's kind of south of Tampa. And it's just the beach. I call it demon sand because it's made of quartz. And so you step on it and it's not hot. And it's something is weird about stepping on sand and it not being hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is the most fun?
The most fun. On my phone. So this is so strange. I've kind of got stuck in Arena of Valor right now. It's a MOBA on the phone, and I don't know what it is about just kind of, if I got time, I just sit. I have this big beanbag in my house, and I just kind of lay on the beanbag and play a couple games of Arena of Valor. And it's like the most minimal MOBA, very simple, but it kind of does something to my needs for gaming.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
Yeah, that's not an easy answer. I love food. For me to cook, so one of my favorite dishes that always gets a smile across people's faces is I make a white bean chicken chili that uses habaneros, and it's thick, creamy chili. That's white. So and I use like a bunch of different beans. It's always so warm and hearty, and everyone likes it. So I like that.
Deceptively spicy is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I do put about a half a habanero in there, but it's a whole big chili base, like a large soup base. So it's not extremely hot, but habaneros love to just get you. Just fantastic.
What is your favorite book or podcasts you've listened to recently?
Okay. Yeah. So books are fun. I'm actually going to do both because I'm going to take this lightning round and have a couple strikes. So books I'm reading a lot of recently. And right now I'm trying to get through Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules. It's right on my right here. 12 Rules for, I can't see it. But Jordan Peterson has 2 books, and one of them is 12 Rules of something. I can't remember the name. It's over there, so I can't tell you. But I'm getting through that. And podcast is I just finished Extra Credits, the Extra Credits game version, not the Extra History or anything.
Yeah, I love their YouTube series. Super informed. And I think it was Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life.
Of Life, yeah.
Does that sound right? Okay.
Yeah.
And let's talk about your favorite video game visual effect that you are jealous about that isn't your own.
Yeah. So everything that Clement does. Clement is like, he is this level that I aspire to get to. His understanding of tech is it's just ascended. So, man, everything he posts just makes me go, how? So then I go on this weird rampage of just Googling and trying to understand what he's doing. I think he and 2 other people are the only ones that I have the bell for notification. So every time that person posts or retweets, I just want to see it. That and Jan.
So what's the most recent one that you saw that you were like, oh, wow, this blew my mind?
Yeah. So the one that just always enters my mind is the one that's the explosion. Have you seen that one?
I see lots of explosions.
Yeah.
Is it the one where the ground's breaking up?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that like the ground breaks up, it's kind of slow and it has this blue explosion that comes out from it, but it's all done it's all shader work. It's not all that. It is not Houdini, simulations of pieces flying around. It's actual just shader, beautiful shader work.
Cool. Best advice for a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry?
Yes. I'm going to steal this from Keith. So Keith Garrett from Beyond Effects. He told me, and this is just beautiful, is go to Unreal. Go to the content examples, get every single effect that's in there and redo it 3 times. There's a fire, there's a bunch of just basic effects that come with Unreal. And if you redid them in 2 or 3 different styles completely, draw it, look at how many textures they use, put it in material, build the material yourself. Don't just change what's already created. And if you did that with every single effect that was there, you would have 150 small effects that you then learned and built in probably a month, and your understanding of how Unreal would just grow immensely, and your understanding of how effects work in general would grow immensely. And if you did that and took 1 month to do it, you would be on top of the majority.
That's good advice. Thank you, Keith, for speaking for Anthony on behalf.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge.
What are you most excited about for the future of visual effects in real-time space?
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to Django putting out his tool.
Django FX.
Django FX. It's gonna get the vector, how things are gonna look. I feel like massive scale explosions and clouds, weather systems, all of these highly technical, very not performant objects are going to become more performant and as tools are being built. And we're going to see, I'd say over the next 2 or 3 years, 2 to 5 years, probably, there's going to be some massive changes in cinematic works for real time versus rendered out systems that we're going to get closer and closer to that. And I can say that's happening currently for mocap and cinematics because I'm working in that space. So I'm looking at seeing the blend of all of this. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait.
Anthony, what question do you never get asked that you wish you were asked more often?
Oh, wow. That's a question that I haven't been asked, and I wish that was asked more often. But if I'm if I'm a little cheeky with it here. So I don't get asked this very much, which is surprising to me. But the question of how hard is it to get into the game industry, regardless of VFX artists or anything?
How hard is it to get into the games industry, Anthony?
Yeah. So it is not simple, and it is highly, highly dependent on where you are. I'm in Orlando, and we've lost some major players in Orlando. So Zingo is here, and I think King was here for a second. And after their buildings had left, really all there is an indie space, a big simulation space, and then EA. So if you're looking for something that's specific, such as VFX, you're only going to get an indie space and you're not going to be getting paid. And it's not cheap to live here. So sometimes you have to fall away from your realm and then keep doing things on the side, keep that side hustle growing. So it's not easy. I kind of stress that as much as possible.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts to say or plug? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, well, we can definitely promote if you're into effects, if you're listening to this podcast because you want to get into effects, or if you are into effects and you're found a podcast because there's not any of them. So I'm so happy that you did this. I would recommend going to the Discord, which you can link in the podcast. I'm sure you have. Go to Real-Time VFX forum, realtimevfx.com, and spend some time there in the community. So those are two fantastic plugs. But the thing that I would really recommend everybody who wants to get into effects is reference, please. Please have reference for your items if you want help to get through something. We have no idea what you're doing if we don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just all of our listeners, Anthony loves to help people with their effects. So if you jump on that Discord, he will help you with your effect. All you got to do is ping him. I think you go by the tag name Rhetoric.
Rhetoric, yeah. REDDERICK, Rhetoric.
And I got to ask Anthony, how'd you come up with that username? Like, what's the story behind it?
That's a really good story. So be prepared for the story. Yeah. So military, everyone has their when you're deployed, you have something you have to do to get away from the bad. And the bad was Iraq. And for us, the good was D&D. So I had a character, this character's name was Zionin. And my buddy liked that name so much. He said, I want it. What happened? What can I do to get that? And I said, you can have it, but you have to name your firstborn child Zionin. And I didn't expect it. So I gave him that name, and I came up with, there's a story with this Zionin, and his brother's name is Rhetoric. He's a silver-tongued assassin. So Rhetoric Johns. And I just really liked that name, and I hadn't seen it. I used it a lot. So I started using it for an online tag, and I used it for so many years that even people just started calling me Red around my friends and stuff. So I just kind of got stuck with it. And no joke, that guy named his kid Zionin Rilsk. The middle name is Zionin's last name.
Wow.
So, not kidding. Totally doesn't go back on his word.
What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You have a good day, Anthony.
Yeah, see ya.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode with Anthony Davis. It was a lot of fun to be able to talk with him, and I hope you enjoyed listening to what he had to say. Remember that you can jump onto the Real-Time Visual Effects forums or the Discord and share your work to get some feedback directly. Anthony's always there to help, and I know I get a lot of value out of it. Just remember that whenever you ask for help with your effects, have some reference or something to base it off of with context. That's super important. The thing that Anthony had mentioned was Keith's advice to aspiring artists that we should be looking at the starter content in programs like Unreal Engine and be able to dissect what's already been done and be able to replicate it. That would be your homework assignment if you're trying to get in. Go ahead and break them down, and that'll have a huge foundation for your effect. Until next time, rock on.